Thank you. I'm the last speaker, so I'll try to keep this brief. But, for me, and I would echo so much of what everyone else said, for me, I'm a pretty strong conservative, and for a long time I've been interested in the border security side of this and not as much on the path to citizenship side of this. But fundamentally, you have to answer the question, is America capable and willing to deport 11 million people? It's logistically not possible. It's financially not affordable. From a human perspective, it's probably not a good idea to split up families. So if you start from that perspective, then you have to have a path to citizenship, to legal status, and eventually to citizenship once you pass a series of steps. So I think it's important to first identify what are the threats to actually getting this done this Congress. First is that dirty word, amnesty. Amnesty has been used so many times by so many different people, it's almost lost, it's lost really definition. It's now used as a pejorative term with the sole intention of trying to scuttle any chances to pass a comprehensive immigration bill. So I think anytime we hear the word amnesty, we need to ask the person that's saying it what that word means to them, to define it, and to understand, is this someone who wants to be constructive on immigration or someone who just wants to try to scuttle any chance to get this done? The other threats to this, I think, are comparisons to the 1986 bill, which was also done in a comprehensive fashion but didn't have the border security elements ever really materialize. We need to be very clear that this Senate bipartisan proposal that Rubio and others have put forward is very different from 1986. There's not a trust us portion of it. The trigger has to happen first, and Rubio has been very clear that if there's not the law enforcement border security trigger, he's going to remove himself from the process. And so I think that's an absolutely critical element. Another threat to this is the McCain-Kennedy bill from a few years ago. I was working on Capitol Hill at that time. I was working for a senator who would receive bricks from his constituents asking him to build the wall, build the fence. For whatever reason, the McCain-Kennedy effort, which I think was probably necessary for it to fail, for us to get to where we are today, I don't think that that's a particularly helpful way for us to try to get the current bill through. McCain is someone who doesn't have a lot of credibility with conservatives. I think a lot of Republicans are concerned about someone like Ted Kennedy. The messaging around McCain-Kennedy, I think, really failed. What's been key to this Senate bipartisan proposal that's been put together is that you do have members across the entire spectrum, from folks like McCain in the middle, to liberals like Chuck Schumer, to conservatives like Rubio, and Jeff Flake, who's from Arizona, a freshman senator who'd been in the House for a long time. So I think, first of all, we need to talk about the threats. So what are the chances for passage? I think, first of all, it's important the Senate go first. Because ultimately, if we're able to defeat the negative elements on a comprehensive bill can pass in the Senate with 70, 75, 80 votes, and I think that's ultimately the most likely scenario. And only by doing that can we put enough pressure on the House to pass this type of legislation. I do believe the House leadership is generally in favor of a comprehensive bill, but they're going to get a lot of pressure. Just a week ago, the House Judiciary Committee seemed to prefer a piecemeal approach. So the House may try to do piecemeal rather than comprehensive. What's important is that both houses pass something so that we can get to a conference and have a chance to have both sides pass it. This event today is very important because it's important that Texas send a signal that we are, as a border state, but also as a conservative state, supportive of a comprehensive approach to actually solving this problem. And we've had great leadership at the state level. I'm someone who's very excited about Ted Cruz. I've been a little bit disappointed that Cornyn and Cruz have been negative so far. It'll be important for Texans to stand up and communicate with them directly. What can we do to have an impact? First of all, I think it's Marco Rubio is the linchpin here. This whole thing falls apart if he doesn't have the support and the cover that he needs to continue to push this thing forward. He's been really masterful, I think, so far in trying to tame talk radio in the 2 weeks or so that this has been out there. If any of you have heard him on Hannity or Mark Levin or Rush, he's been very effective. So number one, let's each personally find ways to support Senator Rubio and his efforts here, because he's demonstrated tremendous courage. Second, we got to stand up. When we hear these tired criticisms of a comprehensive approach, approach, we've got to stand up. And so whether that's talk radio or letters to the editor or talking to your congressman or leveraging the associations that your companies are members in, it's important that we all do that. I remember the McCain-Kennedy bill was killed because of talk radio, absolutely without question. And so I think right now it's sort of in a little bit of a kind of a gray area. They haven't totally killed it, but they haven't shown real support for it yet. So it's important that we marshal support however we can for talk radio, in op-eds, in talking to our members of Congress. And I think Ted Poe presents a great example of someone who 5 years ago would have been the last person on earth to support this kind of approach. But over time, perhaps because of some political realities that we saw in the 2012 election, but also I think because people are starting to be approached from lots of different angles, whether it's business or evangelicals or other communities, it's been really important. So I'm very hopeful that the Senate will pass a bill perhaps by June. I'm hopeful that the House will continue to make progress and that we can get through a conference committee and get both sides to pass it. It is an uphill battle, but the chances are better now for passage on something like this than ever before. And if we can try to solve this issue by having the Law Enforcement Board of Security trigger first and then a real path to citizenship, that, keep in mind, they don't become citizens immediately in the Senate proposal. They get a legal status temporarily. Once the trigger kicks in, then they have a chance to apply for a visa. Then they have a chance to apply much later for citizenship, at probably a 10 to 12-year window of time. That's after paying a fine. That's after proving that you know English. That's after going through a number of steps. And so, again, let's try to fight back when people talk about amnesty, because that's a pejorative term that's used to try to kill this effort. So thank you all very much.